Hey everybody, this is Deb with Garden Devotions, and I said I was going to tell you my story with chronic fatigue syndrome. And it started 20 years ago in just a few days. Yeah, 20 years. So I do have a little bit of experience in this area. It's been a challenge. It's been a series of ups and downs, but it's been livable. God has been good. He's taught me a lot of things through this. It's not that I would wish this on anyone, but I think he's used it as a learning experience in my life. So I can't be sad about that part of it. I'm not really sad about it all because I think I've grown as a person quite a bit through this. And a lot of those rough edges that I've had in the past, I think most of them have kind of been sanded off. Not all, obviously not all, but the Lord has really used this to make me into a better person. So let me tell you how it all started. I was teaching school, and at the time I was in a school, and just to let you know, all the cuts that I'm making here, because there are cars driving by the street, is usually really, really quiet. And for some reason right now, everybody thinks they have to get out in their cars. Maybe it's because it's such a pretty day. So anyway, I want to tell you what my story was. In the year 2000, let's see, it would have been February of 2000, I got sick with a really bad cold. Well, I was teaching school. It wasn't unusual. Teachers get sick because kids get sick and then they come up into our face and they cough and everything else. So, yeah, I got sick. Not a big deal. I got better after, being sick for a couple weeks. I think I almost lost my voice or something, which I always did that time of year, so it wasn't unusual on that either. And then I was better for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I got sick again. In fact, I was so much better during that time, I actually took a group of kids to a performance, French students, to a performance in near Chicago that we had been scheduled to go on, and I felt great for that. There wasn't any problem. But then I got sick again, and it was right before spring break. Well, again, being a teacher, I'm not so surprised about getting sick around spring break because there's a lot of stress on teachers. You get tired, and you just have a lot of things you're trying to wrap up before spring break, and the kids are not always with you on things because their minds are already on spring break. So it's a little frustrating time, and I was ready to be away from school. And my habit at the time, I would go camping by myself at a state park. We have some really good state parks around here, and I had my tent and everything. So yeah, it was tent camping, but the state parks are nice. They have nice bathrooms, and the facilities usually have an electric hookup, and so I could take my computer, and it was all good. And that's what I would do in the spring and the fall. And just being away, I would take books to read, and I'd read and hike and just kind of relax and sleep and whatever I needed, just being alone and recharging. Well, that was my plan, and I was going to Turkey Run State Park, which is about a 3-hour drive from here. And not unusual, something that I had done before. So Friday night, I set out after school, and drove down to Turkey Run. And when I got there, I set up my camp. I was pretty tired. I wasn't feeling real good, but I thought, just, a few days of sleep and hiking and getting fresh air and everything, I'll feel a lot better. Well, that didn't happen because every night, whenever I go camping, the first couple nights, I didn't have much of an air mattress and everything, so it was kind of a hard ground that you're sleeping on. And usually I wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get up and walk to the bathroom, which was less than a football field away, usually about probably 2/3 of that. So I was expecting that to happen. And this time, it didn't happen. I didn't wake up until 9 o'clock in the morning. And of course, I had to go to the bathroom, which was a little bit of a walk. I walked down there, came back. I was so exhausted. I went right back to bed, and I fell asleep, and the next thing I knew, it was about 2 or 3 hours later, and I hadn't even had any breakfast. I didn't care about eating. I was so tired, but I did finally get up. I had taken with me some bread, a loaf of bread, and some sardines. So I just slapped together a sardine sandwich, and then I went right back to sleep. And I thought, this is crazy. I got to get up and move around. I got to go, I need to hike a little, get some fresh air. Oh, it was not working, folks. It was not working. I slept and slept and slept. And finally, Tuesday came along, and I thought, this is getting serious. How am I going to get home? How am I going to break camp? And normally, I was one of those people that was very meticulous about my camping supplies. I always made sure everything was dried out well, and I folded it up and rolled it up and put it away meticulously. Well, not this time. I mean, I just tossed stuff in the back seat of my car. It just I don't care. I don't care if the tent's still wet. It doesn't matter. Toss it in the back seat of the car. And so I got everything put back in the back seat of the car, and I rested. I mean, I would have to rest. I'd do something, and then I would rest, and then I'd do something else. The sleeping bag was the last thing I put in because I'd lay down and rest in between. And so, my hand's getting sore. So finally, I got camp all broken, and it was in the back of my car. And then I'm thinking, I got a 3-hour drive going home. How am I going to do this? Well, I made it to about halfway, and there was a certain restaurant that had gone out of business, and it had a big parking lot. It was kind of out in the middle of not much. So I stopped there in the parking lot, and I slept for about 20 minutes. And that gave me enough to get home. And of course, once I got home, I didn't care about anything in my car. I just went inside and fell asleep. And I slept and slept and slept. And this was spring break then. So I slept on Wednesday, all day, the rest of the day Tuesday. Well, there wasn't much left to it. And then all day Wednesday. And by Wednesday, I thought, there's something really bad going on. I'm going to have to get a doctor's appointment. So I got a doctor's appointment on Thursday. And my mom had to take me because it was about a 15-minute drive, and it was just too far for me to go on my own. I had trouble sitting up in the waiting room because I was so exhausted. And I got in there, and they let me lay down on the, table thingy, whatever that is. And so I laid down while I was waiting for him, and he came in and checked me over and took blood tests. And I was tested for Lyme, I was tested for mono, I was tested for all kinds of stuff, and everything came back normal. I'm normal. And that was what was really weird, that it was all normal. So then I had to do something. It got down to the weekend, and I thought, I'm going to have to call in sick. And I had to call in sick for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday, I made it half a day, and then had to have them get a sub for me in the afternoon. As soon as I got there, I pretty much told them, I'm going to need a sub. Now, I was very fortunate because the school system that I was in, they were on a Block 8 schedule, and a generous Block 8, which meant that we had 3 classes a day, and then the last hour was prep. So you had 1 prep and 3 classes each day. And so I'd have 3 classes, and then the next day there'd be 3 different classes. That was the Block 8 part of it. So each class was about an hour and a half long, which meant it was a struggle during the classes to make it through. But that also meant that I had an hour and a half at the end of the day where I pretty much collapsed. And I would either sleep through my prep period, or I would, had doctor's appointments because I had a lot of those. I made it through that week. Well, like I said, Thursday and Friday, I made it through. The next week was a combination of just being so sick, but I'd struggle through, and then I'd make it, I'd have doctor's appointments, and it was like right before my birthday, my 40th birthday, because I would joke with the doctors and things, and I said, they always told me that, your body goes at 40. I didn't know they meant on the day, because it was like right then. Just, my birthday was April 11th, and so, yeah, all these people were, trying to help me, but everything kept coming back. I'm normal, normal, normal. And I don't believe my administration believed me. I think they thought I was faking it, that I was lazy, this is how I was treated, that they were looking at me like, oh yeah, right. And even though I did give them a document from my doctor saying that was the diagnosis, they were not impressed. And, they just didn't believe me. That particular administrator, I was not real good friends with because he and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But it was a very stressful time. But I ended up finishing out the school year. It was tough. But I thought, if I can just make it to summer, I can sleep a lot and I'll finally get rested. Yeah, that's the lie of chronic fatigue syndrome. If I just sleep enough, I'll get rested. It never happens. Never. Yeah, so 20 years, I've never been rested. Maybe once in a while, when I first wake up in the morning and I open my eyes, I might for a fleeting moment feel rested. Then I move. As soon as I move, it's like, yeah, I'm not. So, you just get this little hint of it every once in a while, but not very often. And sometimes when I wake up, I feel actually worse than when I went to bed. Quite often, that's the way it is. So anyway, that was in 2000, and it just went on. Things kept happening. The problem was I wasn't really sick. It's an illness that is deceptive. You don't look sick. You don't have sinus issues. You don't have, you're not like you're in chemo where you're losing your hair or, it's just not that kind of sick. You look normal, but you're not. Your body's not. There's something wrong. And, too many people, when I first got it, too many people were saying, oh, it's in your head, it's just, you just need to tough it up. And yeah, no, because I'm actually a very driven person. I'm like a type A personality. I was always doing projects. I had to do projects. I always have to, and even now, I feel really bad just sitting there. Well, sometimes there's nothing else I can do. But most of the time, I have to be like crocheting or doing something with my hands or something to keep busy because I can't just sit there and do nothing. So 20 years, yeah, it's been 20 years. And that was my story at the beginning. All the tests kept coming back saying I was okay. And shortly after I came down with this, then the doctor that I was going to, my family doctor, he ended up going to the mission field. So I lost that doctor. And I started with a new one. I did find a new one in town. He was really good. He was actually working on a law degree, I believe, to go with his doctor degree. And he was really smart. He put me through a whole ton of tests again. So I had even more tests than I had before. And, it just showed the same thing. I was normal. Now, I will say that one of the tests they gave me had my Epstein-Barr titers at 13, and usually they're around 1. So that was probably the only test that was showing anything. But that's the whole thing about chronic fatigue syndrome. When you first get it, it's a diagnosis of exclusion. You've got to say, it's not this, it's not that, it's not that. So obviously, if it's not all these things, it's got to be this. So that's kind of how it goes. And you spend a lot of time going to doctors. And I felt like I was wasting money. But because you go to the doctor for him to tell you, well, just take it easy and do what you can. It's like, well, good advice. That's what I'm doing. It's nothing against them. Most of them didn't have a whole lot of knowledge about it because it wasn't real big back then. But it seems like it's getting worse and a lot more people are aware of it now. But anyway, so that was 20 years ago. The first 9 years I did teach because I had to. I was living on my own, by myself. I had to pay bills. And I loved teaching. I loved teaching. There were days I would stand outside my classroom after the school day was over and go, I get paid for this. This is awesome. It's never better than to have a job where you enjoy it so much that getting paid is like just a perk to it. And that's almost how I felt. If it wouldn't have been for like the administration and we, like I said, had a few go-arounds and everything. And finally it got to the point where I just was so exhausted that I had to stop. When the school year ended, I could not go back the next year because it was just too much. I couldn't do it. And I had rested the whole summer. I really had struggled, and it was getting a lot worse. It was a major flare. And sometimes for those who may deal with people with chronic fatigue syndrome, or if you have it, you understand flares. There are times I've noticed that like January and February, I struggle. I have a really hard time. At first I used to blame it on, November and December, a lot of family gatherings and things going on. And I just don't think so anymore. I think it's the time of year. Could be the sun. I know that I have had low vitamin D before, really low, like 6. I think it's supposed to be 30. And so one time I had 6 and one time I had 13, I think it was. So yeah, low, but I'm, trying to counteract that. And I do like to go out and sit in the sun. I do think that makes a difference. So not sure if that's part of it, but it's not the cause. I can tell you that. It's not the cause. And it doesn't matter how much time I spend out in the sun or how much vitamin D I get. I'm still going to have chronic fatigue. It's just, that's how my body works right now. So, I've come across things over the years. Probably one of my pet peeves is when people say, "Have you tried this?" And I'm like, please, no, don't. Because you know what? Maybe for the first 10 years, I was up for that. After the first 10 years, when you've tried so many things, you get your hopes up. Just a little glimmer of hope. Yes, I can do it. This might be the thing. You get tired. You get tired of doing it. You get tired of getting your hopes up. And you know what? I've spent an awful lot of money. I've wasted an awful lot of money on these sure cures that all these people have been tossing at me. And it hasn't worked, okay? They have not worked. So I am very skeptical. I've always been skeptical by nature. And now I'm even more so, especially when people say, "Oh, if you just try this, it'll cure you." And again, like I said, it's different for every person. So it may cure one person, but it may have absolutely no effect on me. So I've tried a few things. There are some things that will help mitigate the problems from time to time. It used to be that I had enough energy if I did things like I sold foreign language teaching materials. I'd go to conferences and have a booth there and actually sell during the day. That was really energy intensive. The problem was, if the conference was a 2-day conference, I spent, I figured it out. It was 7 times as much. So if it was a 2-day conference, then I spent 14 days in bed. And when I say in bed, I mean, gosh, it was probably between 18 to 20 hours a day in bed. Yeah, pretty much getting up to get something to eat and going to the bathroom, and yeah, that's about it. That really was all I could do. It was all I could manage. So I had to stop that. The last month that I did that, I made the mistake of doing 2 in the same month, and it killed me. It just wiped me out. And I was trying a medication that the doctor had given me that was, some people had said it worked for them. Oh no, it did clear up my brain fog, but I will tell you that I suffered physically. I couldn't sleep, and then that made it even worse, and I just got to the point where my body crashed, and I spent many days where the 20 out of 24 hours in bed. Yeah, and I was lucky enough to even get up for the 20 hours, but I had to feed the cats and take care of them. So it just was something, as I went through, I tried different things, these supplements and that supplement, and try this and try that. Creatine worked pretty well for me, but it gave me digestive issues, so I couldn't do that. And for long, I mean, I could do it. Like if I did something that had a big energy expenditure, I could use a little bit of creatine for a few days and it would be okay, but then it would start to kick in and I didn't like the digestive issues that came with it. Boswellia is something that has helped me with the pain. I used to go to my chiropractor twice a week, and that my parents we kind of all went together. And he's a different kind of chiropractor where you don't have appointments. You just go in and you sign the list, and it was first come, first serve type thing. And the adjustments would take maybe 5 minutes. The problem was his office is like a half an hour away from here. And now his schedule is so weird, it's hard for me to get there and to go by myself because my mom's just not up to it. And my dad, I'd rather drive than have my dad. He's going to be 92 this summer. So, I mean, he's still a good driver, but I just would rather, go myself. And besides, when I go by myself, I don't have to talk. And talking wears me out, even though I'm gabbing on this video and you're not going to know it. But again, tip of the iceberg, you're seeing this, and then you're not going to see what happens after I shut the camera off, which is I'm going to go in and take a nap. So, but right now I'm sitting outside in my car just because it is so pretty out. And I just want fresh air. I got my window down. That's why all the noise. But yeah, I want to be out in the fresh air, but it's a little chilly, but not if you're not in the breeze. It's fine, and the sun's out, and so I'm taking advantage of it. I'm trying to do what I can. So that's it. It's very hard to describe what it's like. We're trying to do things, and every person who has this, it's different. So, like for me, brushing my teeth. Some days brushing my teeth is so tiring. I have to brush a little bit and then I have to stop. And then I have to brush again and then stop. Because my muscles get so weak. And I had, I know I need to get an electric toothbrush. I have an electric toothbrush. I just don't have a battery for it right now. So that helped when I had that. But again, holding your arm up like that, and that's why this camera, I keep switching hands. It's because I don't have a tripod in here right now, and it's so I'm resting it on the steering wheel. But anyway, so yeah, you get a lot of brain fogs like this, where it's like I didn't know what I was just saying. But yeah, trying the different things, they were just. It's hard. And when you have people who, I know they're good-hearted and they just want to make me feel better, and I want to make me feel better, but when you're trying different things, you got to do what works for you. And I've tried a few things that people have, I've tried several things people have told me about, and I wish they did work, but they just don't. They don't work for me. And like I said, the creatine can help counterbalance a bad time, but I can't use it for long. Boswellia helps me with my aching. The chiropractor really helped with giving me a little more energy from my adrenal glands. But getting up to him is an issue. So it's like, I know I'll feel better if I get up there, but it seems like the days I feel good, he's not in the office. He has 2 offices, and the one is like very long way away, and I can't go there. It's like an hour and a half away, which is not feasible. Okay, half an hour drive some days is okay. Like today, if I had to go up there today, I could do it, but he's not in there today. And so I don't know, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. But it's just been a matter of, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I wake up in the morning. I don't know. When I was teaching school, I had to have like 3 lesson plans. I had to have a high energy, a medium energy, and a low energy plan, because I never knew what I was going to feel like. I didn't know if it was going to be a high or a low or a medium energy day until I woke up that morning. So I had to be extremely flexible in that. But one of the things that has been probably the hardest thing for me, it's the planning, because I never know until I wake up how I'm going to feel. So it's really hard to plan things, but yet I have to plan things. Like if somebody wants me to do something, like stay with my mom or something like that, I need to know ahead of time, because if I don't know ahead of time, I have to plan my energy. I can't, plan something. I can't do something and then somebody goes, hey, I need you to do this for me. And it's like, I don't have the energy to do that. I can't. So I have to plan everything. I have to plan, things when I go out, planning to take a shower. Some days taking a shower is more than I can do. And, it's okay if you're staying by yourself at home. The cats don't seem to mind. But if I'm going out, if you've had 2 or 3 days where you haven't felt like taking a shower, it's kind of important if you're going to be with a bunch of people to take a shower. And my hair gets all greasy and gross and, it's just something you got to plan. But yet, I don't know, it's really hard. It's planning but not planning. I don't know how else to say it. So those are some of the challenges that I face, and that's kind of my story. Since then, there have been ups and downs. I read one study, supposedly, where it said, with chronic fatigue syndrome, in the first 5 years, 1/3 of the people will get better. And then 1/3 of the people will get worse, and 1/3 of the people will stay the same. I kind of stayed the same, but I was getting worse, but it was very slightly. And so I could keep it going. But then, like I said, that year, the last year of teaching, there were a lot of things that came up and happened that caused a disruption in my energy ability to regenerate. And so that made it impossible for me to go back after that. And then once I lose the ability to do something, I think it's gone forever. I don't play my saxophone anymore. I miss it. I miss it a lot. But I just can't. It tires me out so much. I don't have the lung capacity anymore. And my embouchure is like, really out the window. I don't play guitar. I lent my guitar to my brother because it's strumming, just even strumming, that continual repetitive action was too much for me. I couldn't do it. It was tiring, very tiring. And when I say tiring, that usually means that not only did it affect me at the time, but then it took me 2 or 3 or 4 days to recuperate from doing that one instance. And singing, same thing. I don't sing much. Once in a while, I'll sing just around the house, but yeah, I used to love to sing, but I can't. It just takes too much out of me. And so I crochet, but even that, after a few rounds, I usually have to let my arms rest before I can crochet more. But I love crocheting. It takes my mind off of things, especially politics, because that's for my other channel. And, I do enjoy what I do with my other channel with the politics, but sometimes you just need a break and you need to put the world on hold. So that's really where I'm at with this. It's a tough illness because, like I said, people don't see what you're going through. Sometimes I get cat hair is making my nose itch a little bit. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily cat hair. It may just be allergies kicking in because it is spring. And so anyway, but I lost my train of thought. Woo woo, that train has left the station. This is so chronic fatigue. This is why on my political videos, I do a lot of editing. Because of this. Okay, come on. I don't know. But I do need to do different activities. I've had to redefine what I consider fun, because it used to be fun to go out for long walks with my dog and hiking. I drive up to I drive I drive up to the state park and go for hikes. And there was a 2-mile hike that I really loved to do, but can't do that. I can't even make the half an hour one, or the half a mile. Yeah, that's what it is. We have a little one down here at our park, and I couldn't do that either. I couldn't walk the whole thing. There's no way. So, yeah, and I know people think, if you just get out there and do more exercise, I don't think they quite understand the equation. I try to do as much movement as possible. Exercise works against me. So I try to move as much as I can, to get out and move around. And if I can take a short little walk, I try to. But, it's not always good. It makes things worse. Sometimes my legs really, really ache. And a lot of times my legs really, really ache. But if I can take a walk, they'll feel better. Sometimes they feel worse. And again, it's a crapshoot as to which it's going to be. I don't know. I don't know until I start walking. So I try to go places where I can walk short distances. Like if I get out of the car, I can walk like just a little bit, and then if I find out my legs are not going to do it that day, I can walk back and have the car again. So that helps a lot with that. It's been difficult. Living by myself has been difficult, because when you feel really bad, like this morning, it was a little later when I got my video done. It was probably about, it was getting on to 3 o'clock in the morning, which is kind of typical. I try to get done by about 2, but that doesn't work because I'm a night person. I do much better at night than I do during the day usually. And so, I got to bed probably about 3. So, I have a sleep mask, so it's dark, and the cats don't bother me most of the time. I mean, once in a while they wake me up, but I try, if I get up to go to the bathroom, I give them a little bit of food and they leave me alone. So they can be bought off so easy. But anyway, so, this morning I got up and I was up for about an hour or so, and I got so tired I had to lay back down. Next thing I knew, it was 1:30 in the afternoon. So, it's just like that's how it works. And now I'll be okay until evening, and then I'll not feel so great there. Well, I will, but by the time I get everything ready for my videos and I get all my research done, then I have to rest before I can record and edit the video. And that, because if I waited until the next morning, I'd have to do all the research over again because my brain wouldn't hold it all. So it's frustrating. It's really that kind of frustration on it. I love doing it, but sometimes it's tiring. And that's why I do the crochet, because it uses the other part of my brain and I don't have to really think about it much. So I'm babbling, and I do babble, and I apologize because I know probably that's not what you're here for, but this is the CFS experience. If you let me talk, I will. Oh, I was saying how by yourself, because getting the trash out has been a real challenge. I've not done a good job. I've got some bags of trash sitting on the inside back porch that I just got to get out and get in the trash can and get it out on the right day. And so, got to do that. And there's just things that you have to do. And like today, when I woke up, that's what I was going to tell you. Like when I woke up, I was hungry, but I was too tired. So that's why I went back to sleep again. And when I woke up at 1:30, then it was like, I haven't even had anything to eat. And to be honest, when I woke up, even then, I wasn't real hungry, because it was just like, I'm more tired than I am hungry. And when you're like this, you got to decide those things. Getting your bedding washed, getting your clothes washed, they may not seem like big deals, but when you have chronic fatigue syndrome, it's massive. It's like you got enough energy to do one major thing most days. Now, today I probably could have done 2 or 3, but then I'll pay for it tomorrow. You just watch. I got a little bit of caffeine in me because I had an iced tea. And I like that, but there are other physical challenges that come if I drink too much iced tea. So, yeah, it's just like, And when you don't feel real good, when you have your body kind of crashes because you've done too much, it's like everything in your body just goes haywire. Every system in your body, and you don't know, it's like you don't even know what to address because everything feels bad. So, it's a frustrating illness. But anyway, so that's my story. And, I thank you if you're still listening, because I know I've just been babbling on and on. But I felt like I needed to get it out there because there's so many people who have chronic fatigue syndrome who probably can't talk for this long anytime. So they don't let you know what's going on. And after a while, when you've had, been around somebody with chronic fatigue syndrome, they don't ask. Nobody asks me anymore what's really going on. They don't want to hear it. What do I say? It's like when people come up, and they say, "How you doing?" You say, "I'm fine," because they really don't want to hear how you're doing. So I kind of feel like that. And it's harder when you live by yourself because I don't want to say it this way, but it almost comes across like nobody cares. Nobody knows what I go through. And so nobody really cares what I'm going through. And I don't know that people really do. They don't understand it, because they're out doing stuff. And I would have been too. And I will tell you that when I was in my 20s, 30s, until I got this, I probably would have been the same way. I wouldn't have really understood somebody who was going through this. But when you're stuck in the house and, you don't feel good enough to sleep, you don't feel good enough or well enough to do anything, and you're just laying there like a lump, it's frustrating for hours. So that's my life. That's kind of how things go. If you know somebody with chronic fatigue syndrome, ask them how they're doing and listen. Because it's frustrating sometimes. And some people get very down. I'm fortunate. I have a good family. I have, caring parents. And I have a strong faith in God. And that's gotten me through a lot. And I don't let it get me down. But there are times when it just kind of overwhelms me and I have what I call a crash and a meltdown. And I had a meltdown like last week. Well, the week before I think I started videoing. So, meltdowns happen, but it's just a day. It's like half an hour. I just cry. You get a good cry out, and then I feel a lot better, and I go on. So, there are a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome who get depressed, and I totally understand it. I'm not there, but I do understand why somebody might. And I'm just fortunate that I have enough resources, my faith, and my family, that's not where I am. And, I could very easily be there if I didn't have those resources. But I understand if people are there. And I'm not criticizing anybody for being at that point. But for me, that's not where I am. I've learned to see joy in life in a way that I never could have without this illness. And to understand that joy and happiness are not the same thing. That joy is a permanent underflow, undercurrent of your confidence in God, really. And that I know He's working through this illness for my best. And, I've seen it over the years. I know what He's doing in me. The work He's doing in me is going to make me into a much better person. And it is making me into a better person. So I'm glad that I can go through that. It's not that this is the life I choose, but evidently if God had a better way of instilling this in me, I think He would have chosen that way. And since He didn't, He allowed this for a reason. So I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to be faithful to him and just keep my eyes on him, because it's all going to work out. And I don't know how, but if I'm, this way here, eternity is really what's going to matter. And one of these days I'll have a glorified body and it'll work perfectly. So I'm not too worried about what's going on now. I'll make it through. And when you look at the entire grandiose carpet of eternity, this life is just like a little speck. So don't worry. It's gonna get better. It's gonna pass. And especially with chronic fatigue syndrome, if you're having a bad day, if you're having a bad flare for a while, hang in there, because it gets better. You'll have better days, and you'll have days that aren't so great, but hang in there, because better days are going to happen too. So that's my piece of encouragement through all this. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.